For the past year, people have been fervently discussing sideloading on Android. Google made an announcement last year that sent people into a tizzy because Google was going to make some big changes to how people are able to install apps on their Android devices without going through things like the Play Store. And over that time, people have been wondering about this advanced flow that Google talked about, this new system for getting people to sideload things onto Android devices that will be a system with a lot more friction than there currently is. And we now know what it is. We now know what the advanced flow is. Google has told us, and it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot more than maybe you were expecting. So I'm going to explain all of this, but first, before I get to that, I want to sort of give a history of what's happened. There are probably a lot of people watching this who maybe haven't been following the sideloading thing as it's been going on for the past year, so I want to make sure they understand the trajectory that we took to get here. If all you care about are the new sideloading steps, then go ahead and look into the timestamps of this video and you can fast forward a little bit. But if you want to know what's actually happening with Android sideloading, stick with me because this is important information. So over here we have a blog post from August 25th of 2025. This is the blog post that sent the world into a tizzy. So in this blog post, Google gives a bunch of reasoning why sideloading on Android is bad. Basically, it's unsafe. And one of the most common scams that occurs because of Android sideloading the way it is today is you'll get a phone call and the person on the other end of the phone will say, like, there's been a horrible problem with your banking system and you're going to lose all your money. And the only way we can stop it is if you quickly install this app on your Android phone. I'll guide you through the steps. And the person on the phone who's a scammer, they guide you through sideloading an app. The app is filled with malware. The app takes all your financial information or your passwords or whatever, and then steals all your money. And this is a very common scam. It happens a lot in many different countries around the world and causes a lot of problems. So Google has been trying to figure out a way, how can we fix this? How can we prevent these scammers from doing this? So they decided that they were going to do a new thing for everyone, which is developer verification. So this is what they announced in August 2025. And what developer verification meant is that anyone who makes an app that you want to install onto a registered Android device has to have developer information connected to that app. So in other words, let's say I make an app and I want to let someone sideload it. I'm going to have to tell Google who I am. I'm going to have to provide official government identification, and I'm going to have to pay a fee, among other things. And so this was Google's thing. It was like, okay, well now if scammers make apps, we're going to know exactly who made the app. We're going to know exactly who to go after if it's got malware or if it takes people's passwords or whatever. And this was Google's solution. So this sent people into a tizzy because it's too much, too blunt. It was like taking a hammer to try and fix this minuscule problem. And so over the past few months, Google has sort of softened its tone. But one of the reasons, the big reason why people were so upset about this particular system is that there are lots of situations in which providing Google with your information is not great, and there are also situations where people don't want to pay money. So for example, let's say I make an app and it's just an app for me and my friends. I shouldn't have to register that app with Google or pay a bunch of money to Google so that my friends can use my app or beta test my app or whatever the case might be. And then what if I'm making an app that maybe I don't want my information connected to at all because of legal reasons? Let's say I live in a war-torn country and I've made an app that helps people in that country. Maybe I don't want my name attached to that app because, that could cause problems with the conflicting parties in that war. Maybe I made an emulator app. Emulators are legal, but that won't stop big gaming companies from coming after you. So maybe you don't want your name and address and banking information or whatever attached to that app. So lots of reasons why this system didn't work, or at least why people were so angry about it. So over the next few months, from August through October, people were just discussing how terrible this was and how this was killing Android and how Android is becoming more like iOS and all that. So then in in November 12th, 2025, Google published this blog post. And in this blog post, basically Google backtracked a bit and said, okay, maybe we made a big mistake there. Maybe we tried to push too hard. So instead of just making everybody register, we're going to continue to make people register if their app goes out to many people. If it doesn't go out to that many people, a small amount of people, you won't need to register. What was that amount? We didn't know. We do know now, but I'll get to that in a minute. And then the other thing was that they were going to continue to let people sideload apps from unregistered, from apps that were created that do not have developer information connected to them. They're still going to allow that, but there was going to be what was called an advanced flow. And this flow was supposed to make it so that people who were installing that app would have enough friction to prevent the scam that I told you about earlier. And so we didn't know what this advanced flow was. Google kept talking about it. Google kept saying we're going to do this advanced flow, but we have no idea what this advanced flow is until today. So let's get into what's actually happening now. So I've made this little presentation here, so we'll go ahead and turn this little slideshow thing on here. All right, cool, here we go. So step one in the new advanced flow for sideloading on Android is going to be enable developer mode in system settings. This is very similar to what you've already done before, where you go into system settings and you tap on the system build 7 times and then you turn on developer settings. So that's not going away. You're still going to tap that little thing 7 times, and that's going to be how you get into developer mode, which allows you to actually sideload those applications. So that's step one. Step two is to confirm you aren't being coached. So there's going to be a quick check, an alert on your phone of some kind that is going to say, are you on the phone with someone who is encouraging you to install an app? And if you say yes, then it'll stop you there and say, this is a scam, do not do this, hang up the phone, call the local authorities, whatever it might be. I haven't actually seen what the alert box is going to be, but that's, Google has described it to us, and this is what it's going to be. So this is going to be a new step. This is brand new in the sideloading process on Android. So you'll get this, confirm you aren't being coached. You're not being told to do this. All right, so then step 3 is you're going to restart your phone. So this cuts off any remote access to, or any phone calls or anything like that you're currently doing with a scammer. So you have to restart your phone after this process. So once again, this is just to make sure that you're not being scammed. This is to help those people who are possibly being scammed through sideloading to protect them. So this, not a big deal for most people. So far you've had to enter developer settings, which you had to do before, and tick a little box saying that you're not being coached, and now restart your phone. So far, not a big deal. Next one though is where things go a little crazy. So this is a 24-hour waiting period before you'll be allowed to actually install that sideloaded app. And so the way Google explained to us this was that this was the best way they could think of to stop the immediacy of the scams. So when a scammer calls you and tries to do this sideloading thing, the way that they get you to do it is by creating a false sense of urgency. If you don't do this now, you're going to lose all your money. If you don't do this now, your kid's going to go to jail. They present this false narrative of being like, you have to do this now. And if you don't, then you're going to have something horrible happen to you. So by putting in a 24-hour waiting period, that momentum is killed. This makes it more expensive for the scammers to continue their scam. Because if they do decide that they're going to come back 24 hours later and try and contact this person again, that's going to cost them more money. It's going to cost them more man hours to do. And hopefully what Google is hoping is that by that 24-hour period, the person that's potentially being scammed, the victim, will have called their family member and been like, are you actually in jail? Called their bank and been like, is there actually a danger of me losing all my money? And then when the scammer calls again, they'll be like, yeah, right, you done. I found out the real information here. You're a liar. You're a scammer. I'm not talking to you. So that's what Google's hoping with this 24-hour period. Of course, this does mean that for people who are wanting to install those emulators or installing those apps that their friend made, you're going to have to wait 24 hours before you're going to be able to do it. Now, this is a one-time thing. So in other words, once you do these steps, you don't have to do them ever again on that particular device. You'll have to do it on each device that you own, but for that particular device, you do this one 24-hour waiting period after initially starting the sideloading process, and then that's it. You don't have to do that ever again. So yeah, step 5 is go ahead and install your app. So once again, this will enable you to install any app. So you'll be able to obviously continue to install apps from the Play Store and other third-party stores. You'll be able to install apps from verified developers, but you'll also be able to install apps from unverified developers, assuming that you went through all these steps, including that 24-hour waiting period. So yeah, and so one other thing that we did learn is that if you do create a hobbyist app, an app that is not verified, and want to distribute it to your friends and family, you'll be able to do that for 20 devices. So that's the golden number that Google has finally determined. 20 devices will be the limit for that. So in other words, let's say I did make an emulator and I wanted to distribute it to people so that they could help, emulate their games. The first 20 people that I give that app to wouldn't need to go through these steps because that app would be, that would be okay. Google would be like, we're not going to put this advanced flow friction in your way for that particular app. But once that app is installed on 20 registered Android devices, then this takes effect and people will need to go through the 24-hour waiting period before they'll be able to install it. So Google is thinking that this kind of is the best of all worlds. This keeps people safe from scams, or safer, I guess I should say. It allows people who are hobbyists to continue to distribute their apps to up to 20 friends or family members. And it allows people to continue to install sideloaded apps from unverified developers, assuming they're ready to go through this advanced flow to prove that they are not being scammed and are not in a problematic situation that's going to make them unsafe on Android. And so the big thing to remember here is that this is all about safety. So one of the things that Samir Samad, we talked to Samir Samad about this, and who, if you don't know, is the head of Android, said you want a platform to be open, but you need a platform to be safe. And I think that what Google is trying to do here is really present this as being like the safest way to do things on Android today in 2026. Android came out a long time ago, and when Android first came out, maybe sideloading apps wasn't that big of a deal because the Android platform wasn't as big as it is today. But now it's so big and people depend on it for so many different things that things needed to change. So once again, this is Google's perspective. I'm not saying that this is my perspective, and I'm not saying that it should be your perspective. Maybe you don't agree with these things. Maybe you don't like this 24-hour waiting period, whatever. Totally valid. Jump down in the comments and let me know what you think about that. I'm really excited to hear about that. But yeah, Samir Samad, you want a platform to be open, but you need a platform to be safe. So that's kind of the whole idea of why Google is doing this. So yeah, so that's going to be Android sideloading coming in the next few months. Yeah, so this will be rolled out officially in all countries by the end of next year. It's going to start in countries that are much more, where these scams happen a lot more often, and that includes Brazil, Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand. And then eventually it's going to be enforced globally by 2027. So yeah, this is what's going to be, this is how it's going to go, and we'll see if Google sticks with this or decides it's going to change it again after any backlash this one receives, but I think this is going to be it. So yeah, jump down in the comments, let us know what you think. Android sideloading, that's the new deal.